For 25 years, Spring Valley has celebrated the changing of seasons with its annual Sugar Bush Fair. With me to talk about this popular event are Mary Rice, Educational Coordinator for Spring Valley, and Evan Zimmerman, Spring Valley's Farm Manager. Well, welcome to Speaking of Schaumburg, Mary, Evan.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know it's your environmental education.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we now have 2 program coordinators, so I'm environmental.
Okay. How long have you been involved with Spring Valley?
I think close to 20 years, but I've been saying 20 years for about 5, so somewhere in the range.
Okay. Okay. And Sugar Bush. Tell me about the Sugar Bush Fair. How did that get started?
Oh, the Sugar Bush Fair. That's my favorite event at Spring Valley, and it's been here, gosh, about 23, 24 years. I meant to bring a flyer with me. It would say how many years. It's just a tradition that started in all of the northwest suburbs. A lot of the nature centers used to tap their sugar trees, and so did Spring Valley when it first started.
So, and there's an ample amount of maple syrup trees, or maple.
Actually, in the beginning, we used to do Norway maples because we didn't have that many sugar maples, and the ones we had weren't large enough.
Okay.
Now, and I was checking with Evan today just to see how many trees he thinks we tapped, it's between 12 and 15, and most of those are sugar maples now. So that makes a big difference in the quality of our syrup.
How much do you get out of a tree, and how long do you tap it?
That's the tricky thing. Last week would have been a perfect week to tap trees because the temperatures during the day were above freezing and the temperatures at night were below freezing. Now that we're back to being freezing all day long, we're not going to get a good flow this year probably. Okay. It depends really on that, whether the temperatures will drop at night and go above freezing in the day. Okay. So we'll maybe get 10 or 12 gallons of sap. Okay. Which will not give us much syrup at all. The ratio is 4 gallons of sap to 1 gallon of syrup, or 40 pints to 1 pint, whichever. And because in the past, most of our trees were not sugar maples, we didn't get a high sugar content, so we didn't get much syrup.
Well, there's some noise in the background here. What's going on?
I'm not sure. This is the Sugar Bush chicken. Okay, this is a new event. He's coming, or she's coming to our event this year, so she's going to try the sap to see how it tastes.
Well, you're the farm manager there, aren't you?
Yes, that is correct.
You have many of those chickens right?
Yeah, we actually have about 30 of them at the farm, along with 3 geese and 3 ducks, 2 cattle, 5 or right around 5 to 6 hogs,
and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, right out of my mouth.
Yeah. So, but this is actually what is known as a Dominique chicken. This is actually a historical breed, originated in the New England states. Very common of what you would have seen historically through a lot of farms in the 19th century, or mainly all over the Midwest and the United States.
So you would expect to see, let's say, turn of the century settlers here having this kind of a...
Yeah, this type of breed. It's one of the oldest breeds known to be around in the 19th century in America.
Okay, and they produce eggs?
Yep, historically what they would have used these chickens for are not only eggs, but meat as well. And then also you can see she has some nice and very pretty feathers. They would actually use those as well for various things like pillows, or there's a common job or things that they would make during this time period, what is known as millinery, and it's real nice elaborate hats that the ladies would wear around town, and so they would take those feathers and decorate their hats really.
But they'd have to kill the chicken to get the feathers.
Exactly. But they would use everything. So.
Well, she's a little out of sorts here, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she misses the rest of the.
She doesn't know what's going
chickens.
on. I'm all by myself. I'm in a cage. Mm-hmm. Mary Rice is
staring at her.
Staring at her. Yeah.
So you said we have 30 chickens?
Yep, right around.
So you get 30 eggs a day?
No, not exactly. Some of our chickens are actually older, so they don't produce anymore. But right now, being the colder months of the year, they don't actually produce a lot. We'll be lucky to get 5, if that.
No, do they have to have chicks before they begin to lay eggs, or they just?
They actually, how it happens, if you want to get chicks, you have to actually have a rooster around. But
Sure.
no matter what, they're always going to lay eggs.
Okay. Right.
It's kind of like the maple tree that Mary was talking about, in the sense that they, once the spring comes around, they'll start laying more and more.
Okay.
So.
Meaning they can lay more than 1 a day?
Oh, yeah. Well, usually it's about 1 a day, but they'll lay more on a regular basis.
And my grandparents were farmers in Ohio.
Okay.
And I used to go with my grandmother to collect eggs from the hen house.
Okay.
And every once in a while you get a hen that didn't want to get up and let you take the egg. But it bothered me because I got chased by them, but my grandmother would take her apron and
She had the technique?
Oh, she had it right down.
So did you tap trees too?
No.
Did you have maple trees?
No maple trees at all. Black walnut trees back in the woods.
It's interesting. You can actually tap black walnuts, which really surprised me because you think of that strong chemical that comes off of them, which kind of prevents other trees from growing too close. But you can actually tap those as well as hickory and beech and cottonwood trees and get sap that can be boiled down to syrup.
Now there's something you do something besides just tap trees at the
Sugarbush Fair. Yeah, it's a great breakfast. It's a breakfast for all. We have a pancake breakfast that morning, and you can buy the tickets ahead of time at the Nature Center. They're $3.50 or $4.50, depending on whether you want a small serving or a large serving. And this year, the food's going to be provided by Whole Foods.
Oh,
so
how
this
wonderful.
is going to be a whole new event for us. You know, it's going to be very, very different, exactly. But it's a wonderful, wonderful event. The most we've ever had was back in 2009, and we had 1,500 breakfasts we served in 2 days. And last year it was a very slow day or slow weekend because of the weather. We only had about 850. But it's a good breakfast. The small serving is 2 large pancakes, 1 sausage, and then coffee and syrup or hot chocolate or milk. And the larger serving is 3 pancakes and 2 sausages.
And you have some events for kids only, too.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of interpretation going on, so the kids can try fake drilling a stump of a tree and try tapping in a spile. I meant to, let's see if I brought that with me. I brought a spile to remind me to show you. This is what we actually put into the tree that the sap flows out of during the season of the year. And so one of our interpretive stations is actually taking pieces of sumac that are about 1.5 to 2 inches long. And they will melt out the pith inside the sumac and then whittle it down to make a little spile like this. And then the public gets to take those home as a kind of a souvenir.
Oh, yeah, that's neat. That's neat.
And then we have the actual boil down happening. Back when I first started at Spring Valley, we used to actually boil the sap for our school programs. And so our sap, by the time it really became syrup, was probably this color instead of being this nice rich color that you would normally think of, because we had stopped and started the process so many times. Now we save the sap until the Sugarbush Festival. And so we actually boil it straight through those 2 days, and we get some beautiful looking syrup.
Now you sell the syrup, is that
Yes,
correct?
we do. This is not stuff that we actually produce at Spring Valley because we don't have the number of trees that we would need. But this particular one was bottled in Wisconsin, and I brought it as a present for you.
Oh, wow.
And actually,
I'm not sure I can take this, but I will.
We've actually gotten syrup that looks about that color if we're able to boil that sap continually down until it becomes syrup. It takes about 14 hours to do that.
Wow.
And so we
now, where do you get the tree tappers? I mean, where do they come from? I mean,
what do you mean, the people who tap or the
the people tap?
Dave does it.
Dave does it?
Yeah, Dave goes down. He went out last Friday.
Dave Brooks?
He did 2 at the cabin, 2 or 3 at the farm, and the rest were at the Arboretum. So we have about 15 trees, a dozen to 15 trees tapped. And then we have volunteers who go out and collect the sap on the days when we know it's running.
How busy are you besides Sugarbush? What else do you do?
We actually are getting ready to open up for the year coming April 1st for our interpretation. The grounds will actually open up on March 1st. And so you can come out Tuesday through Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then on the weekends we're open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our first major event is our Springtime on the Farm event, which is Sunday, April 10th from 12 to 4 p.m. And what we do for that is kind of talk about what's going on at the farm during this time, the 1880s time period. And it varies. I mean, we have, again, children's programs. We do plowing demonstrations. We'll have a milking demonstration, just all kinds of different programs going on.
When's the Sugarbush?
It's the weekend of March 19th and 20th. It's always the 3rd weekend in March.
Okay.
And it's 9 in the morning until 12 noon.
And what does it cost?
$3.50 or $4.50 ahead of time, or 4 or 5 at the door.
And that gets you a nice, healthy pancake breakfast?
It's a healthy one, it's a hot one, and it's an invigorating one. There is nothing like having breakfast underneath a tent on a kind of a cold, nippy day. It's really a great event. I think it's my favorite.
Oh, that's great. Evan?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, once again, thank you so much. This organization began in 1968 as an offshoot of its Elgin location, and currently has over 5,000 members. We'll talk about it next here on Speaking of Schaumburg.